Hi everyone, I'm Rosemarie Miller and welcome to Then They Rose. Here we'll be exploring the inspiring journeys of how celebrities, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders overcame adversity and rose to greatness. Today we're joined by Jasmine Ellis Cooper from Summer House, Martha's Vineyard. A vibrant personality and natural-born leader, Jasmine brought her dynamic energy to the house, quickly becoming a fan favorite. From navigating friendships to chasing dreams in the creative world, we'll dive into all things Jasmine, her journey on the show, life beyond the cameras, and what's next for this rising star. Jasmine Ellis Cooper, thank you for joining Then They Rose.
And they rose, honey. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. It's a beautiful day here in New York, and I'm hydrated.
Hey, now that's important.
That's how I gauge my days.
Well, Jasmine, we were just talking about earlier how you seem to have it all and have it all at once, and we don't hear of that too often. You
Right.
are the star of a reality TV show, Summer House, Martha's Vineyard. You have a newborn baby now, and you actually married the man you met from Hinge. You married him. We don't hear about that often.
During the pandemic.
Yes. How does that feel?
It feels I'm a natural storyteller, and it really does feel like I couldn't have even wrote this script if I wanted to. It feels great. It really does feel like everything's falling in alignment. But what I've learned recently is with alignment, there's definitely going to be a bumpy road. There's a lot of adjusting.
Yeah. I saw a quote on your Instagram profile from you on your, I want to say, 32nd birthday. You said, went from having nothing to having everything. My cup is full. With grace and grit, this little girl from St. Louis will be birthing babies and projects all year long. So initially, when I read that, I wanted to tackle the went from having nothing to having everything. But I'm actually more curious about this little girl from St. Louis because I often refer to myself as a little girl from Mississippi. And when I say it, yes, you just see the statement, but I know how full, how loaded that statement is. So help me unpack this little girl from St. Louis. Who is she?
She's bubbly and goofy. I think she's very much present in a lot that I do. As you listed, I do see myself as a resilient, gracious person. And I owe a lot of that to her. I grew up primarily with my grandparents. While my mom was in Atlanta, just prepping for my sister and I to come with her. And I watched black and white movies. I was very much an old soul, um, huge jazz lover. I spent my grandfather and my grandmother were my best friends.
Yeah.
And I think they exposed me to so much culture. They instilled so much pride and confidence in me. And those are the things that I think a lot of when I think of little Jasmine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So explain that transition to me, the transition from living with your grandparents to living with your mother.
So my mom got into real estate, moved to Atlanta. Her goal was to go to Spelman and practice journalism. And my mom is the funniest person that I know. I really do feel like my graciousness and my graciousness comes from my grandmother, let's be clear. And my personality and charisma, I attribute 100% to my mother.
Yeah.
But she is a firecracker, very much a Leo. And I think what her vision for my sister and I was to get out of St. Louis and expand what we could see possible for ourselves. And I'm so grateful that she did that. I feel like if I would have stayed in St. Louis, I definitely would have still made a way and been maybe an agent of change for the arts if I had stayed. But as fate would have it, I was meant to do that in Atlanta. And so went to performing arts school, was very active, student body president, cheerleading, dancing. My mom was like, "You're doing too much." But there was so much freedom that I got to practice and live out in Atlanta. Now, she's a single mom. It was not always easy, but we always had structure and a plan. And I give my mom all the credit because even as a mom now, I'm just like, "How did you do it, girl? How did
Yeah.
you do it?"
Yeah.
But I think the biggest gift she ever gave my sister and I is the ability to see a different environment and decide who we wanted to be.
Yeah. So you always knew, even when you were younger,
Mhm.
that you were more of a creative person and that this was the path that you'd pursue.
Oh, yeah, when I introduced myself to people, I'd be like, "I'm Jasmine Dominique Ellis," like, full name, like, I knew I was meant to do something and be an example and just be the epitome of the good of
Yeah.
what it is to be a Black woman here in
Yeah.
America.
And you mentioned that, okay, mama did it.
Mhm.
Mama was really doing it as a single mother.
Yeah.
And now you see, because you're a mother now you see
Oh,
that.
hats off.
Yeah. So what would you
Hats
tell
off.
your mom right now? Like, knowing what you know now as a mother, what would you go
Mhm.
back and tell your mom?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would tell her, "You're not crazy for leaving, even though nobody else has done it, and your girls are gonna benefit from every right and wrong that you do."
Wow, you're not crazy for leaving. So there was a lot of judgment
Oh,
around
for
her
sure,
leaving.
no one left St. Louis, like, that's a place that you're born there, you die there, like, it's very, insular,
Mm,
and what's around you is what exists. So, for her to have that vision for herself and for her girls, like, she had me at 19, so that was kind of a big thing. This young, new single mom, she could have doubted herself, but that's just never been my mom, and I'm so grateful that I've been on the receiving end to benefit her just being that way.
yeah. Oh, wow. And so now looking back, you see, like, mama was still raising herself too.
To this day, I'm like, "Girl, you're still growing." I mean,
Yeah.
she's been an empty nester for a while, but it's beautiful to see her constantly evolve. I think that's my metric is my mom. She still has new visions for herself. And I think that has benefited me as I've entered motherhood so much because I'm never going to just define myself in one era. I have so many eras to live out. And for her mistakes and all her misfortunes and her grit, I've seen that there's so much adaptability, there's so much evolution that one can have no matter what your family life looks like.
Yeah. And could you unpack that a little bit?
Mhm.
There's so many eras to live out because a lot of people, they pick a thing and they do that thing forever.
Yeah, I really did struggle. Like I was a person when I left high school, right? My vision for myself was to double major in chemistry and theater
Mm.
because that makes sense, right? I've always been left brain and right brained and I think for my mom, who had sacrificed so much and was so supportive of us, we bumped heads a lot
Mhm.
because for her, she didn't want to limit me, but she wanted me to choose something and just go for it. Because unlike her, like I didn't have kids, I wasn't way down, like just go for the thing you want to do, which is being an actress. And I saw so many I was a multi-hyphenate before I knew I was a multi-hyphenate. And I've always struggled with defining myself, in an expansive way. Like, I feel like people saw me one way, like, "Oh, Jasmine's this, she's very charismatic, she's gonna be this, she's gonna get a Golden Globe one day." But I also saw this five-year-old self of me, like, when I was 5, I was telling my grandparents, "I'm gonna make musicals, but I'm also gonna invent something in the pool or when someone pees, like, it'll just attract." Like, I was a visionary,
Yeah.
but I didn't know where to place all that left brain, right brain energy.
Yeah.
So in college, I struggled a bit. Can I do chemistry? Can I do acting? How do I define? I didn't see anyone doing that. So I started to like dial it back a bit. Still being courageous in the vision I saw for myself, but I thought, okay, maybe that'll be like my second act and I'll just focus on acting. And thank God for my mom. She's like, okay, so what are we doing? I was like, I guess I'm going to move to New York. Let me get my little cheerleading bag and I'm just gonna take the China bus up to New York.
And you moved to New York with a dream,
Mhm.
with just a dream. Was
Yeah.
that risky for you? How did you feel in that moment? Because that's a scary jump.
It's funny, a lot of my friends from high school have always described me to this day as very courageous.
Yeah.
I don't know where to place that word on myself. I never saw like, oh, this is a brave thing to do. I just was following what I wanted to do, doing what I've been taught to do. Go after the thing you want. Whatever you see for yourself, do that. So I never really saw it as courageous or brave or like even a lot of my friends now are still in Atlanta and I can't conceptualize personally um having any fear. I only saw freedom in going after the thing that I saw so clearly for myself.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how are you going to provide for yourself?
I hadn't figured it out. When I tell you I just had the first 2 months rent
Yeah.
and my cheerleading bag, that was all I had. I just knew I've always been a person that and for better or for worse, I just feel like things are gonna work out for me. I don't really think otherwise. And so got there, my roommate did brand ambassador work, so that's what I did. Okay, brand ambassador work, waitressing, cool. I'll find an acting class, I start taking it, paying for acting class, and yeah, I'm just gonna do. I did not have a plan.
You didn't have a
I
plan,
did
but you
not
just
have a
knew
plan.
everything would work out. Tell me
I
about
knew
your
that that's what I had to do was to get to New York, and then the rest would unfold.
yeah.
That's what I knew for sure.
Tell me about your spiritual life.
Hmm. Well, I grew up in the church. I'm definitely a preacher's kid. My grandmother was a minister, is a minister. And for a long time, it just felt like practice. Like we go to church, that's what we
Mhm.
do. Um, but now that I've become I've always, my family is my flex now. And when I think about the spiritual life that I want for myself and my son and my husband as a unit, I've been exploring what the church is for me. Um, so my spiritual life right now is a lot of silence
Yeah.
for myself, time for myself. That's everybody knows that about me. And fellowship.
Fellowship. So, what was your spiritual life then as you were clearly walking by faith and not by sight?
Hmm. I guess it was a very faithful thing to do.
You think grandma's prayers held you up?
Absolutely. I don't disagree not one bit.
Yeah.
I think there was a faith in my overall destiny. Um, but right before moving to New York and while I lived here, um, the faith was in the vision. The faith was in myself. Um, I didn't really go to church. I kind of like stepped away to kind of find it at some point again on my own. But the faith was in one foot in front of the other. That's kind of how I practiced my faith at that time.
One foot in front of the other. And how long did that work out for you until you
Until I
started?
ended up in a car. Until I ended up living out of a car.
Yes.
I think that's probably when it was its strongest. And I think back to, I don't know, if I were, when my son gets older and we talk about like my upbringing and things that I've gone through, trials and tribulations, I still don't know how I can explain to him that even as someone that was displaced and living out of a car and showering at gyms, I don't know how to explain that I was never worried. I truly just thought this is temporary. This is just for now. The next thing will reveal itself. So I guess that makes me a way more spiritual person than I than I probably realized. But my best friend Mariah at the time, it was fear. It was this is not good. It was we're gonna have to move back to our respective homes.
I'm with Mariah.
But that truly never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
We could have just, okay, girl, I'll scrap up whatever money I have and get a plane ticket back to Atlanta. Even in the pandemic, I didn't go back to Atlanta. Like that, this was gonna be my home and I was gonna figure it out regardless what was happening. So yeah, I guess you can say I have a lot of faith.
Yeah.
And I guess it's only now that I realize that.
So, actually, take me to the moment. Okay,
Mhm.
you're realizing I'm about to have to live in my car. You put everything in my car and I have nowhere to go.
Mhm.
Tell me about that day.
So I'm a huge history lover. And in times where I'm not sure what the next move is, or that I'm having difficulties adapting to the next milestone or the next big thing or big mountain that I'm supposed to climb, I read a lot of history books.
Yeah.
I find so much comfort in reading biographies um, of just really exceptional people, some that we know, some that we don't. Vintage Black Glamour is what I've been reading lately. And it's tales of names that we know, old Hollywood, old politicians, and some that we don't. And I find so much comfort in they had to do so much more with so much less. That's so comforting to me because I'm getting chills right now because I know I can do it. I know I can do it. I know that I'm provided for before I even know I need what I need. And that's what grounds me. I think that's why I never batted an eye because I had my history books in the car with me. And I had Insecure to watch. When Molly and Issa were going through their stuff, I'm like, hey, I'm going through stuff too. Mine just looks like living out of a car. Never doubted it.
You never doubted it.
Never.
They had to do so much more with so much less.
Absolutely.
You know, I think about that when I'm stressing about, I don't know, sending an email or something, and I think about grandma was out there marching and fighting, and my grandma drove from
Speak on it.
Mississippi to DC in a
Mhm.
car that wouldn't go in reverse.
Mhm.
And I can't send the email.
It sounds so absurd, but it does put things into perspective.
Yeah.
And I know that our trials and tribulations for our generation are different.
Yeah.
They're a lot more internal than external, I feel, which makes them a bit harder in a different way. But absolutely, if they're going for their dream, I damn sure better make sure I'm going after mine. And not just thinking about myself, but thinking about those around me.
Yeah.
I want to be useful. Let me be a vessel.
So is this what you meant when you said went from having nothing to having everything? Is that your nothing? That moment living in the car?
Yeah. Yeah, that absolutely was my nothing. Just had a bag.
How did you communicate that to your family members if they tell you to come
Oh,
home?
I never told them. I never told them. They didn't know until I wrote a whole show about it. Never knew. Never knew.
That you were living in your car, Jasmine?
No. They didn't know. Because in my mind, my belief was, what good will that do?
Yeah.
I'm the only person that can walk my walk. So I don't want to stress them out because I'm not stressed.
You're a young woman in New York City.
I know. But clearly God was watching because sleep in the car with the windows up, like,
yeah,
we were covered, I like to think.
So when you knew you were getting out of this situation, what was that like? You're finding your first apartment?
Oh, that was the best. I think moving day was so great. I mean, we didn't have a lot to move in, but couldn't afford movers, so we did it ourselves. Because we had a storage unit. When I hate using the word convinced, but when I empowered Mariah to move to New York and follow her dreams, even as a single mom, you know, she brought a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we had to put our things in storage and try to make those payments for the months that we were in the car. But when it was time to move into a place, now granted, we still had to share a room,
Right.
baby steps, but I consider that our trap era because we had both of our mattresses in the same, it was a huge room, by the way, like further out in Brooklyn, so we had space. But we had a roommate and we shared a room initially, and we were happy to have like instant coffee and like to like make a meal at home. And it was just really great to not have honey buns and Doritos. That was my go-to meal. And hers were ramen noodles, the instant ones, whenever we can find somewhere to like warm them up. So to like just be able to cook at home and, like, have a refrigerator to put our things and I have it spoil was huge. We were so excited. It really did feel like it's only up from here. Like, we've done the rock bottom. That's why we named it rock bottom. We've done the rock bottom era. It's only up from here. So, I gotta hear you snore, you gotta hear me snore. That's small things, but it just felt like we had saw so many amazing, funny, odd eccentricities of New York, from the characters we'd see on the streets, on the train, to the whole ordeal of parking. New York is such an interesting character
Yeah.
in my life, and I wanted to pay homage to that and kinda speak to what that experience was, because later on, I found out so many other people couch surfed, lived out of their car. They just don't talk about it till they get to where they get to, and I wanted to
Mhm.
talk about it the second that we got our place. Like, "No, we gotta talk about this now. This just happened.
Yeah.
Maybe this can help someone
In
and
what
be
way?
funny at the same time."
In what way?
Um, well, I feel like there was some sort of lesson to get from it,
Yeah.
and I didn't know exactly what that was at the time, but we were happy and willing to share. But that's why we decided to make the show Rock Bottom a comedy, because I'm an advocate for Black joy. Like, we can go through things and still have joyous moments. That's what got us here as a culture. And that lesson could be learned from someone. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It could be a stranger, it could be a family member or a friend, but hey, we just went through this. Like, none of our friends knew, our family didn't know. But when it was time to kind of share that information, we wanted to do it in a useful way and not just like a look what we just went through kind of way.
So, coming back to today,
Mhm.
take us to having everything.
I feel hmm, I've always had this vision of the type of woman I wanted to be, and she would love her family life. She would be passionate about what she's doing, and she would have great friends. Um, and I feel like I'm there without even realizing that I'm there. So in the moments where I'm like, what should I be doing next? What's my next move? How do I leverage where I'm at to get to the next thing?
Mm.
I just do the contrasting thing and slow down and get really still, because my flex is my family. I love the little boring moments of just being home with both Silases and watching a show or just taking a walk. Like, that feels like luxury to me. That feels like everything I need is literally in this house.
Yeah.
Everything I'm capable of, everywhere we're going as a family, it's all starting right here. So it feels like I'm at the bottom of a new mountain to climb, but at the same time, I don't have to do it alone. I have this immediate family that we've created and this life that feels slow and purposeful, and like I spoke about earlier, the adapting and adjusting that it takes
Yeah.
when you're going through milestones. I mean, you're recently engaged, and congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you.
But you'll find that it is a new era, and you get to lay a new blueprint for yourself. You get to reshape and redefine who Rosemarie is. And it takes time. There might be some really high highs, there might be some really low lows, but you're building your family. And that's such a small luxury that I don't think as a Black woman I saw coming.
Mm.
You know? Like, I didn't see it with my mom. Sort of kind of saw it with my grandparents, but I never, because it's mine,
Yeah.
it's very sacred, it's very joyful. I do feel like I have everything because I have that.
My family is my flex.
It is,
Oh,
absolutely.
that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So you saw yourself more as a career-oriented woman.
Mhm,
That was your initial flex.
for
And
sure.
so before you met Silas and you're on the dating scene, were you actually looking for something serious or were you just dating to date?
I And we told the story at our wedding. A lot of my friends, we went to Dumbo House and had dinner. This is when like rock bottom was really, we were pitching. It was like, okay, like I'm a real screenwriter. Like I'm
Yeah.
pitching shows. This is cool. I can afford this meal tonight. I'm good. When we matched on Hinge, um, right before then, a couple weeks prior before the pandemic happened, I had told my homegirls, like, I don't know. I feel like I've been dating. It's been cool, but like I've just been having fun. But
Mhm.
I feel like I'm gonna meet my husband this year. Like I don't. They were like, "Where, girl? What's? Are you dating someone now?" I was like, "No," but I feel like I'm gonna meet him. And so to have that happen not too long after, during at the very top of the pandemic, like everyone was inside. We were all on our phones.
Yeah.
We were trying to find something to do. I mean, we had just launched rock bottom in terms of pitching, and so again, focused on career. What's the next step? And this this man appears on my Hinge swipe,
Mhm.
and the second I swiped right, I kid you not, something inside me was like, "Yeah, that's your husband."
Really?
And I'm like, "No, no, no." Like, okay, like truly heard it, heard it somewhere in my soul, and then the first FaceTime we did checked off everything, every box that I needed in a life partner because I wasn't excited about dating because in my mind, you have to add to
Mm.
my life, not subtract, because I've worked very hard to add where I'm at. And he just added to my life in so many ways. And we had so much fun. We bonded over history and our commitment to our families. And we just kind of saw life the same when we looked out into the world. And that was when I knew, like, yeah, he
Mhm.
gets it and he gets my jokes. So that's that's a huge plus. So it felt like this other part of where I'm going in life started to like the career was going up. So it's good. We're focused, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And then the personal life, the love life really started to just flourish.
Yeah.
And it felt like overnight. But having our friends, going on trips, I mean, that's what kind of led to the Martha's Vineyard trips is that we love spending time together, but we also love hanging out with our friends. We're both very social people. And so it felt like another way of us to kind of practice fitting the pieces together of our lives.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
the show happened soon after y'all got married, right? So,
Yeah.
what's it like starting a marriage and having it so publicized?
I honestly was very excited
Yeah.
because I knew just for us being married alone and like a young black couple on the network, that was exciting to me. I was like, "Oh, what an honor, what a privilege, what a beautiful thing to just have out there
Yeah.
and exist." Because I mean, the housewives were a lot older. So that felt like later on in life, but I felt like we got a chance to be like, "No, this is what we're doing right now. These are
Mhm.
our lives right now. We're passionate about these things. We work at this job. These are our connections and relationships." Um, but what surprised me the most about it is I believe the show is the biggest blessing because a lot of us don't really get the opportunity to see ourselves outside of ourselves
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh, pivot, readjust. I see what's going on. I see how life is structured. I want to make these changes."
Mm.
It forced he and I individually and together to kind of like make changes and redefine like, okay, we've gone through a lot in this roller coaster because at that time he had just got back from training from joining the military. Um yeah, it's nothing could prepare you for doing reality TV.
I'm
Nothing can prepare you to feel like you're being seen right through.
Mhm.
But we have no regrets at all because we were a part of amplifying a place that we love so much. And the experience, the pros and the cons, it was a lot of adjusting. A lot of adjusting.
So
But I feel like I've become more of myself through it because it's either gonna break you or it's gonna make you. And it started to chip away a little bit at me. And then I was like, hold up, wait a minute. I have a say. I have agency over how this goes.
Mm.
So you're gonna get me, you'll get my life story, like you'll really learn about us, but let's make it a good thing. Let's make it a positive thing.
Your confidence is radiating. It is.
But I didn't know, and that's the thing. The show taught me how much faith I have and how confident I am and how I am a light when I walk in a room.
Yeah.
It made me not shy away from that because you have to, or otherwise you're going to be misunderstood.
Mhm.
And that's another thing I've recently just been okay with is not constantly feeling like I have to define myself. Be like, oh no, no, so this is on this way. Oh no, 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 you misunderstood. Like, no, no. I don't have to explain where I'm going. In my friendships, I do have to explain where I'm at, but I've become a better communicator. I've become a more grounded person. I've become more, even more faithful.
Hmm. Well, Jasmine, what do you say to people who have so much to say, so much criticism about your marriage?
That's cool.
Hello.
That's what I have to say
Hello.
about it. Look, I grew up watching Potomac,
Mm.
Atlanta. Like it's so weird being on the other side, but you're criticizing, if any, my marriage as such a baby infant in its infancy. So
Mm.
that's cool. Just sit back. We're good.
Y'all got
That's
forever
my
to go.
soulmate.
Hmm.
Mind your business. We good over here.
Yeah, must be because long
Yeah.
distance isn't easy.
It isn't. But that's the thing. It's the things that we've been tested in every which way, and it's made us even more effective communicators. And I think it prepped us even more for being better parents.
Yeah.
Um, we've handled a deployment, we've handled a reality show, we've handled being away half a year all the time from each other. We've handled navigating jobs, reassessing friendships, just becoming more of who Jasmine and Silas are. And it's a beautiful thing. It's expanded us.
Yeah. Well, Jasmine, I know so far
Mhm.
Summer House Martha's Vineyard has not been renewed for.
Yeah, still on pause.
Yes. So what's next for you?
Well, what's next for me, as we were talking a little bit earlier
Yeah.
about my love for history, and I'll give you that information about
Mhm.
Piney Woods. Um, I'm building community. I'm constantly telling stories, but I'm forging a path that brings both of my loves of academia and entertainment together. So selling shows, still pitching my television shows, and I write historical comedies,
Yeah.
which is shocking. Not really. Yeah, I'm just really defining and making the stories and communities that I want to see myself in and at.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.